And from the West Coast to the East and North Carolina, one of the first states where polls will close tomorrow. Today, 8 federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies issued a joint statement warning Americans that foreign actors continue to influence public sentiment and shape voter perceptions. And as Yamiche Alcindor reports, with early voting already underway, it is the security of the election that is on many voters' minds.
Eager to vote early, but worried.
What is on my mind is more of the integrity of the election.
As she waited to cast her ballot in Cary, North Carolina, Keisha Bryan wondered if people will be able to trust the results of Super Tuesday. The small business owner with a 4-year-old daughter is hoping for the best, but like many, she's concerned about how votes will be counted and about foreign governments interfering in U.S. elections.
I don't want to get to a situation where people feel like their vote doesn't count or it doesn't matter or they just don't know what to do and so they stay home.
In this primary, 30 of 100 counties are using new voting machines. Though state officials say everything has been tested, some voters are still on edge. According to a recent poll by Meredith College, more than 1 out of every 4 voters in North Carolina has little to no confidence in the state's voting process.
Now, we have an obligation to those who don't feel confident.
Karen Brinson Bell oversees election security for the state's Board of Elections.
I've been a chief judge, as we call them, out in the polling place before.
She acknowledges voter confidence in this state is low.
So this is one of the tabulators that we use in our state.
Brinson Bell and the board have faced criticism for approving the new voting machines ahead of Tuesday's primary without much notice to voters.
Because of the time frame that we were under to get these out the door, it was very tight to do voter education on these machines. We're having great response from the voters. They're very comfortable with the machines. It's very intuitive. So we don't see an issue.
For the first time in several decades, every vote in North Carolina will be backed up with a paper ballot. But recent election scandals in the state have left voters wary. In 2016, courts struck down the state's voter ID law, saying it was aimed at blocking many black residents from voting. In 2019, a Republican operative was charged in a ballot fraud scheme. The State Board of Elections said an entire congressional race had been compromised and ordered a special election. On top of everything else in this key 2020 state, misinformation campaigns to sway voters are growing.
A Facebook page calling itself North Carolina Breaking News is under fire, and many
North Carolina Breaking News and other Facebook pages claiming to be local news organizations have been popping up. Phil Napoli researches misinformation at Duke University. He says the efforts are similar to what he saw in the run-up to the 2016 primaries.
Oftentimes, there's a linkage between folks who are undecided and folks who are not as well informed, so they become this very vulnerable population when it comes to elections. And if it reaches those vulnerable people, that might be all that needs to happen for it to sway the outcome of an election one way or the other.
Bryan says she's changed her own habits online, but she doesn't think President Trump is doing enough to address misinformation and foreign interference in the 2020 election.
For the leader of our country not to take that as seriously as I do as a voter, that's definitely something I keep in mind when I go cast my ballot.
Bryan waited over an hour to cast her vote early for Senator Elizabeth Warren. She sees voting as the best way to push back on false information and protect the country.
I think the answer to building our democracy is not staying at home. I think the answer to building our democracy and putting integrity back into our democracy is more people showing up.
With Super Tuesday just around the corner, election officials here say they feel confident things will go smoothly when voters show up. But combating misinformation and foreign election interference remains top of mind. Judy?